Top 10 Abandoned Places. Desolate, eerie, and filled with the ghosts of long ago. Signs of times past. Some of the places on our upcoming list used to be bustling metropolises filled with life and hope. But now they're home only to echoes and the whistling of the wind. Today, we're exploring 10 abandoned places that will blow your mind. For this list, we're looking at some of the world's most haunting spots that have been left behind. Let's begin this chilling tour. Number 10. Kaiokoi, Turkey. Up until the 1900s, it was a thriving village with over 2,000 Greeks living there. However, something happened in the 1920s which caused every single person inhabiting the village to abandon it. 100 years ago, Kayakoy was absolutely bustling. It used to have everything you could expect from a village: a church, a school, the bakers. But in 1920, following the Turkish War of Independence and the failure of the Greeks to seize the Asian coast, the Turkish government created the population exchange policy. This required that all Greeks living in Turkey at that time must leave for Turkey immediately and vice versa. Number 9. Fordlandia, Brazil. This was the famous headquarters of one of the world's most successful motor car companies, Ford. To turn Ford's dream into reality, factories were built in Midwestern housing styles, and streets sprang up faster than the jungle could be stripped and cleared. It was an epic adventure and, in the end, an epic failure. Ford's plan for his company to produce all of its own rubber collapsed as disease destroyed the trees and ill health devastated the workforce. In 1945, the Americans finally packed up and went home, leaving behind the ghosts of a great enterprise. Now, the only signs of life are colonies of bats occupying the rooms. Number 8. The Valley of the Mills, Italy. The Valley of the Mills is an incredibly attractive place in Italy with a long history dating back to the 1200s. In 1886, Piazza Tasso Sorrento town was built, leaving the mill isolated beyond it. The mill was completely abandoned and left to the elements in the 1940s. The main building is hauntingly beautiful, as nature has claimed its surroundings and hugs its walls with lush greenery. One can imagine it rich with the ghosts of former mill workers producing grain for the area. Number 7. Aniva Lighthouse, Russia. There are numerous abandoned lighthouses in the world, but few with as dramatic a setting as the Aniva Lighthouse. On the southern tip of Sakhalin Island in Russia, thrusting out of rocks off the shore, the rusted, crumbling lighthouses rise 9 stories high in the stunning crashing waves. It was built by the Japanese in 1939, but taken over by the Russians in the Second World War. They installed a radioisotope thermoelectric generator to power the light. The stroboscopic light was gotten rolling by a system like perfect timing, going through the focal point of twisting flight of stairs, prompting the actual top of the pinnacle, was aligned with a suspended load of 270 kgs inside. It took the weight 3 hours to arrive at the base, turning the light all the while. Abandoned in 2006, it's now home to nesting birds. Number 6. Montserrat Island, Caribbean. The island of Montserrat in the Caribbean was largely evacuated between 1995 and 2000, following the eruption of a long-dormant volcano. The eruption destroyed the city of Plymouth and continued to be active, forcing the creation of an exclusion zone. It is now heavily buried in volcanic ash. The abandoned city is said to be eerily quiet, as it's absent of any wildlife. Most haunting is the possessions and houses left behind, as residents were quickly forced to vacate their homes. The island has scenes worth visiting on your movement to Montserrat, since it is one of the most abundant and stunning tropical islands on the planet because of its beautiful seashores. Number 5. Varosha Cyprus. Entry to this town is forbidden, but its eerie abandoned buildings can be admired from afar, located in the city of Famagusta. Varosha once had a population of 39,000 people and was a mecca for tourists. The residents fled when Turkey's 1974 invasion was over, and after that, people were never allowed to return. After the town was resumed, Turkish Cypriots were permitted through the walls to investigate what remains. These days, the stunning old hotels, shops, and homes are falling apart. Its empty streets with buildings continue to provide reminders of the people who once lived there. Number 4. Fordlandia Island. This incredible island is situated between the cities of Venice and Lido in Italy. The tiny island has a rich history with records of residency dating back to 421 AD. In 1379, the inhabitants were forced to flee from. One of its octagonal forts, which were built beginning in 1645, still stands. By the way, people have actually used and sometimes known of its use as a quarantine for plague victims in 1776, and it was then home to a mental hospital until it was abandoned in 1968. The island was famously featured on an episode of Ghost Adventures. Even though there are lots of attempts to restructure and redesign it, the island still remains vacant. Number 3. Belitz Heilstätten, Germany. The 60-building sanatorium at Belitz was built in 1898, but was converted into a German military hospital during World War I. The site's most infamous moment came when a young Adolf Hitler arrived, having been injured in the Battle of the Somme, and was treated for a wound to his leg. The Soviet Red Army took control of the complex following World War II. However, most of the site was abandoned by 2000, left to rot, and succumbed to the surrounding foliage. Resting on hospital beds, discarded surgery tables, and decaying corridors combine for an incredibly haunting atmosphere. Number 2. Pripyat, Ukraine. The city of Pripyat in Ukraine may not sound familiar, but its vicinity to the Chernobyl nuclear power plant should explain why this town has been abandoned for many decades. It was founded in 1970, specifically to house the workers of the nuclear power plant. Its maximum population was about 50,000 people before 1986, when the Chernobyl disaster occurred. In case you're not familiar, Chernobyl is considered the worst nuclear disaster in history and is one of only 2 nuclear energy disasters rated at 7, the maximum severity on the International Nuclear Event Scale. In recent years, the area has been open to tourists, and the results are certainly creepy. The walls of every building are covered in communist propaganda posters. Children's toys are scattered throughout front yards. This is a city that ground to a halt in the midst of an emergency and left everything behind. Now the city is overrun with animals like wild boars and wolves. The once thriving metropolis is descending into disrepair and abandonment. In the future, it may slowly decay and disappear entirely. Number 1. The SS Airfield, Australia. The SS Airfield, built and launched from the UK in 1911, had various uses throughout its nautical life. It served as a steam-powered collier, a cargo ship designed to carry coal and carried supplies for the Second World War. It was decommissioned in 1972. Its hull was abandoned to the elements in Homebush Base, Sydney, Australia. Nature has greatly reclaimed the hollowed ship, and it's now referred to as a floating forest. There is certainly a calming beauty about the image as a whole, as well as an eerie reminder of what once was. That wraps up the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to press the bell icon to stay notified about our uploads. I'll see you next time. Till then, peace out.